For centuries, empires have risen, basked in glory, and inevitably crumbled to dust. It is the natural order of history, a cycle that no civilization has managed to escape. From the grandeur of Rome to the vast dominion of the Ottomans, from the ideological stronghold of the Soviet Union to the global powerhouse that is the United States, each has followed a familiar trajectory. The question is not if an empire will fall, but when. And for America, the signs of decline are undeniable. The echoes of past collapses resound in its present struggles. Like a slow-moving landslide, the empire erodes from within and without, its foundation cracking under the weight of economic disparity, social unrest, and overextension abroad. But how does an empire truly meet its end? Let us turn to history for answers. At its peak, Rome was an indomitable force, a civilization whose influence stretched across continents. Its roads, its architecture, its military strategy, remnants of its greatness still endure today. But if you stood on the streets of Rome before its fall, you would not see an empire at its height. You would see an empire rotting from within. The Roman elite reveled in unimaginable luxury, hosting extravagant feasts, drinking the finest wines, and indulging in pleasures far removed from the struggles of the common people. Meanwhile, the poor lived in squalor, packed into overcrowded buildings, working menial jobs for meager wages, subsisting on bread and porridge. A vast economic chasm separated the elite from the masses, and the empire's foundation weakened with each passing year. Taxes fell disproportionately on the working class, while the rich found loopholes to protect their wealth. Resentment festered, disillusionment spread, and as the empire crumbled, the people turned their gaze to the rulers who had abandoned them. The middle class, the very heart of the American dream, once thrived, built on the promise of hard work and fair reward. A house, a car, a stable job, and a bright future were once achievable for millions. But today, that dream is slipping through the fingers of everyday Americans. Wages remain stagnant while the cost of living soars, homelessness rises, medical debt crushes families, and a nation that once prided itself on prosperity now watches its infrastructure crumble before its eyes. The wealth gap has never been wider. The ultra-rich, the modern-day senators of Rome, continue to amass fortunes beyond comprehension. Corporations and billionaires manipulate the system, while the working class bears the weight of economic hardship. The system, once built on opportunity, now thrives on exploitation. And history tells us what happens next. For 6 centuries, the Ottoman Empire reigned, a sprawling dominion of diverse peoples and cultures. It was a beacon of scientific progress, architectural marvels, and diplomatic prowess. But like all empires before it, it faced a reckoning. Its decline was not solely due to military defeat, but to the slow erosion of its influence. The Ottomans maintained power not just through force, but through diplomacy, through a carefully managed system of alliances and governance. But when that influence waned, when the people within the empire no longer felt loyalty to it, the structure began to unravel. Nationalist movements surged. Once loyal regions sought independence. The glue that held the empire together no longer stuck, and the empire fractured from within. This brings us to America's waning influence on the world stage. For decades, the United States wielded an unparalleled form of soft power. After World War II, it positioned itself as the global leader, a beacon of democracy, economic growth, and cultural dominance. The world consumed its music, its movies, its ideas. It funded rebuilding efforts, created global institutions, and shaped the economic systems of nations far beyond its borders. But an empire's reputation is fragile, and America's is cracking. The hypocrisy of its actions, the wars, the interventions, the economic coercion, has become too glaring to ignore. The once-admired champion of democracy now appears unstable, embroiled in internal conflict, struggling to uphold the very values it preaches. Around the world, allies waver. Nations seek new partnerships, new alliances, new frameworks that do not depend on American influence. And as America's soft power fades, history reminds us of what follows. The Soviet Union once stood as a counterbalance to American dominance, an empire built on ideology, military strength, and the promise of an alternative world order. It controlled vast territories, engaged in proxy wars, and funneled immense resources into maintaining its grip over its sphere of influence. But maintaining an empire is costly, especially one built on military might. The USSR poured billions into its arms race, into its military bases, into its wars. Afghanistan was the breaking point, a 10-year conflict that drained resources, shattered public morale, and accelerated the empire's collapse. The cost of control became too high, and the empire imploded. Now look at America. With over 700 military bases worldwide and a defense budget that dwarfs entire nations, the US has overextended itself to maintain its dominance. Wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have cost trillions with no true victory in sight. The endless funding of conflicts abroad continues. Ukraine, Taiwan, the Middle East, while the empire's own people struggle to survive. And just as the Soviet Union found itself drowning in the cost of maintaining its empire, so too does America find itself trapped in the very cycle that has undone so many before it. Empires do not fall in isolation. They fall as the world around them changes. Today, the global landscape is shifting. Nations once bound by U.S. influence are forging their own paths. Economic and political structures that once favored the American empire are being challenged. The dominance of the U.S. dollar is being questioned. Alliances are forming that threaten the old order. The world is becoming multipolar, and in a multipolar world, a single empire cannot stand supreme. The cycle of history continues. Rome, the Ottomans, the Soviets, all have fallen, and now America stands at the precipice, facing the same fate. The cracks are deepening. The question remains, how much longer before it all comes crashing down?